Hi, and welcome to another edition of Dessert Devotion. Today, our featured recipe is a pumpkin walnut cookie. Now, I'm not a huge fan of pumpkin, but this time of year, how can you resist trying at least one recipe? I think you're going to love it. I'm going to start with a stick of softened butter, half a cup of pumpkin puree. This is the canned stuff, but it's not the pumpkin pie filling that already has all of the flavoring, just the pure pumpkin puree. 1 egg, and I'm just going to mix together my wet ingredients first. And when they're nice and blended, it'll be time for the second step. The secret ingredient here is the oatmeal cookie mix. I like the oatmeal cookie mix because it already has those flavors in there, like the cinnamon, allspice, nutmeg kind of flavor. So you don't have to add anything else to it. So once I add this as my dry ingredient, I'll blend it all together until it pulls together as a moist cookie dough. Now I'll just add half a cup of chopped walnuts. I think it adds a great crunch and texture to our cookie dough. Check out my baker's joy. Let me show you a great trick. If you spray your scoop with a little cooking spray, look, your cookie dough comes straight out. So this is a great way for doughs like this that can be kind of sticky. Now I'm going to spray my fork as well. If you leave the dough like this, it looks like a drop cookie and it'll be mounded. If you want your cookies to be flatter, take a fork and press lightly on each cookie and kind of shape it the way you want. Other than that, you can refrigerate the cookie dough and then it'll hold its shape better in the oven. But this works just as well. As a final touch, I just like to add a few more walnuts on top. I just think it looks great and people know that it's going to have that nice walnut flavor to it. Fresh out of the oven, these cookies taste amazing, but when they cool, we're going to add one more step. Well, now that our pumpkin walnut cookies are cooling, let's get started on our devotion. Our devotion, I'm going to begin in James in the first chapter, verses 2 through 5. And this is the NIV, or New International Version. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. When I hear these verses, you know what I hear? That sometimes you gotta wait. You have to persevere, you have to keep going, you have to endure. Well, easier said than done. In fact, many of the times when I am caught waiting on something, you know what I spend my time doing? Trying to figure out how to get out of waiting. Not too long ago, I realized that I allowed my entire birth month pass without renewing my car tax, which meant I bought myself a free pass to the tax assessor's office. You know how those lines can be. They're slow as molasses, and now you're waiting outside. It was freezing cold, and I thought to myself as I was waiting in line, how can I get out of waiting in line? So I quickly did a search on my phone and realized that if I were willing to wait a couple of more days, I could go ahead and apply for those renewal stickers online. And you know what I did? Exit left. I couldn't wait to get out of that line. But sometimes we shouldn't leave the line. Sometimes that waiting is on purpose, and that waiting is for a purpose. Sometimes waiting in the end is a good thing. It gives time for us to learn, to mature, to grow. our waiting has its own purpose. If we were to read James again, but this time in the New Revised Standard Version, it reads, "My brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of any kind, consider it nothing but joy, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance have its full effect, so that you may be mature and complete, lacking in nothing." If only we could have the faith to believe that in our waiting, God is working, and that in our waiting, if we wait just a little longer, we will realize a more complete work. We will realize all of our purpose in its fullness, in its readiness, because we were willing to have just a little more patience, willing to endure just a little longer, willing to keep going and persevere just a little further down the road. It's kind of like baking. I mean, yes, you see all the ingredients and you can put them together and take the time to do that. But then you have to wait for those ingredients to bake and come together. You can work hard kneading that dough. You can work hard putting everything together in the mixer for a beautiful cake, or you can even mix the ingredients for fresh, warm pumpkin walnut cookies. But if you aren't willing to wait the right amount of time for all of those ingredients to come together, then the whole process was in vain. Who wants an underdone cake? Who wants runny, raw cookies? There is purpose in the waiting. The same for us. Sometimes it takes that time for God to bring about within us, or maybe even around us, that perfect Kairos moment where everything comes together. And so in our faith walk, we have to trust that sometimes if we feel like we are just being delayed and things are working against us, maybe that delay is working for us. I want to read finally this passage again, but this time in the Message translation. The Message translation is a more vernacular translation written by the late Eugene Peterson. I just love it for a devotional study. And he translates these verses in this way. "Consider it a sheer gift, friends, when tests and challenges come at you from all sides. You know that under pressure, your faith life is forced into the open and shows its true colors. So don't try to get out of anything prematurely. Let it do its work. So when you become mature and well developed, it's not deficient in any way." When God gets ready to pull all those things together in the background, it's going to come together for our good, for our growth, for our maturity, and above all else, for God's glory. So let's not try to rush through it, hurry up and get through it, or to get over it. But instead, let's prayerfully ask God, how can I grow during this time? How can I mature? What must I learn? Help me use this time so that I can get the full effect of God's blessing and God's purpose in waiting. Amen. I'm going to make a cream cheese glaze for our cookies. I start with 2 or 3 tablespoons of cream cheese. You can soften it at room temperature or place it in the microwave for about 10 or 15 seconds. Half a cup of confectioner's sugar and just a couple tablespoons of milk. I'm also going to add about 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. From here, you can judge it. If you want a thicker icing, add a little more powdered sugar. If it needs to be a little thinner, then just add more milk. Easy enough. You've seen enough of my devotionals now to know that you need to keep piping bags in your house. Or you can use a gallon quart bag, snip the end, and decorate your cookies. Aren't these adorable? Now that's a cookie. Well, I'm sure you are going to enjoy these pumpkin walnut cookies. Cookies are a fun comfort food for this time of year. Be sure to like and share this devotional with your friends and family, and be sure to join me for my next edition of Dessert Devotion.